by the sea,
by the beautiful sea.
you and me,
You and me.
oh how happy we'll be.
When each wave comes a-rolling in,
We will duck or swim
and we'll float and fool around the water.
over.
Hi, I'm your host, Harry Orgovan, and welcome to another episode of Our Lives, Our Future. We're keeping safe today with Dr. Browner's hand sanitizer, and we're also sponsored by the Chula Vista Heritage Museum, the South Bay Historical Society, the City of Chula Vista, and the Chula Vista City Library. Today we are very privileged to have with us the Mayor of National City, Alejandra Sotelo Solis. Welcome, Mayor.
Buenos dias. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you. So, can we start off by learning about where you were born and where you were raised and what type of family you were brought up in? And tell us maybe a little about your parents, too.
Sure. So I'm Alejandra Refugio Sotelo Solis, and my family, I'm the oldest of five, but it's always been a very fun, noisy, organized chaos environment because my parents met at Southwestern College on the tennis courts, and that was one of their first dates. My dad challenged my mom to a tennis game. And
What was the score? Love?
oh, yes, it was. I was born in 1979, and I'm the oldest of five in our household. And it's just been an amazing family because it's always about the laughter. It's always about just being together, the convivir, the coming together around good food, good conversation, and the laughter is what I always remember and still have to this day with a very good sense of humor.
So as you were growing up, would you consider any one person or a group of people, perhaps a mentor of yours that really encouraged you as you grew?
Well, you know, growing up on the west side of National City, there was auto body shop next to transmission shop, right next door to my grandmother's house, where on the west side of National City, where I grew up, that I didn't know that that was incompatible. I just knew that that's the environment that I lived in. Until I went off to college, that I learned that it was injustice. We talk about environmental justice issues, but then I learned that other communities don't smell like that. Other communities don't have sludge coming down off of certain businesses and going into the walkway to school. And so it was through that, I had multiple teachers who supported and just said, Mija, you can be and do whatever you set your mind to. And one of those teachers in the 5th grade, Mr. Sevilla, from Kimball Elementary School, he asked us, what do we want to be when we grow up? And I announced I wanted to be the mayor of the city of National City. And it was, so I announced my candidacy a little early, but it was interesting because I grew up 4 blocks away from City Hall, and they never asked me, this brown hair, brown eyed little chicanita growing up on the west side of National City, they never asked me my opinion. And so as a person who was kind of always in ASB and city council or school council, I felt, well, that's where I need to be. And I didn't know what it entailed, of course. I didn't know that, you had to run for office with campaigning and all that good stuff, raising money. But I just knew my voice needed to be heard. And it was at that point that I kind of set my goal there. So Mr. Sevilla, being supportive, he actually swore me in when I got elected in 2018 at my swearing in ceremony. It was beautiful, surrounded by family and friends, a good 400 of my closest friends and allies that were there. Mr. Sevilla, as my 5th grade teacher, swore me in. I would say that I stand on the shoulders of my elders, my grandparents who, my abuelo, who was born in Arizona, but U.S. citizen, was deported because he was brown, very dark skin, and during the mass deportations, they sent him down to San Juan de los Lagos, My grandmother, who at 15 made her way up to the United States to be with her grandparents here, and in a tortilla factory. That's where they met, my grandmother and grandfather. And that's my maternal grandparents. And then my nana and tata, which is my dad's or my paternal grandparents, my abuelo or my tata Chuy, Jesus, he was here, and his family is actually part of the Lemon Grove incident, which was the basis for the Brown versus Board of Education. And it was a court case where they talked about equal access to education. And many people don't know that it happened here in Lemon Grove, and the Sotelo family was part of that lawsuit early on. So not knowing, but having it in my blood that activism and just access, whether it be to higher education, voices at the table, it runs in my blood. But I didn't know that until college and beyond, because I started to understand the different scenarios. You know, you hear these stories, but it doesn't always apply until you really see it. This is what happened. So that's why I'm so impressed with the magazine and the book about Miss Ruth, and just really being able to see these are things that happen, and this is how it applies to history now. And so, you know, again, my elders, all of my grandparents, I stand on their shoulders. And I have to say that my grandfather, who was a union member of the LIUNA, which is the laborers, he helped build the 5 freeway. And he would dig ditches. He would dig the holes. This was before power tools and before the big excavation machinery. And because of that work, and because of his work ethic, he was able to purchase a home. And that's where we grew, and we had roots in National City. I'm a proud 3rd generation resident of National City. My girls are 4th generation. And because of those roots that my grandfather laid in National City, I'm able to be this representative, even a former Miss National City. Thank you. But being part of that community, truly, that helped raise me. And it's amazing, because from running in his backyard when I thought it was like a forest and just this massive farmland, now as an adult I'm like, wow, this is a small backyard. I remember he grew corn, and the stalks were huge. He had a guava tree. He had pomegranates, he had plums, lemons. We had a chicken coop, and now an avocado tree. He even had an adobe oven that at times they would cook whatever, like a carne, and he would make carne asada or like chicharrones and carnitas, the whole night. But it was just amazing as a child seeing all this natural, again, the environment that I was brought up in was both farm in a certain degree, the urban farm, but knowing that was also too very limited, because we had and are park poor. We don't have lots of open space in working class communities, because right on the other side of the fence was a tar shop. Right on the other side was a transmission shop. On the other side was a cement factory that built their wall to their business right on the property line of my grandparents. So when you talk about incompatible zoning, incompatible uses, this was those things that I knew intrinsically because I lived it, but I also too learned that it was wrong, and it was something that needed to be repaired. So seeing how he endured, how my grandparents endured, and they were successful, homeowners, and allowed me and my next generation, my mom and me as the 3rd generation, to strive for that same goal. They planted that seed for sure. So mentors, definitely those family members, and I would say politically speaking, we have people that have been true trailblazers like Mayor Casillas Salas here in the city of Chula Vista. And again, still have conversations with her all the time. I just spoke with her just a few minutes ago. Prior to even running for office, you have those people that you bounce ideas off of.
Tell me more about your education, where you went to school at different points, and as you partook in a higher education, the different things you were involved with.
Sure. Very proud to have been a public school student. I went off to Kimball Elementary School, National City Middle School, and Sweetwater High School. Then I went off to UC San Diego and got my degree in political science. And there on campus, it was really about access to higher education. I met my husband through MECHA, Movimiento Estudiantil Chicano de Aztlán, and it's an organization focusing on Mexican American students, originally founded by Mexican American students, but really it's more of a mindset. How can we get more underrepresented students to higher education? How can we get more people in that pipeline to getting a higher education degree? It could be from an AA all the way up to a doctorate's degree. And we know that there are challenges, whether it be fiscal, financial, as well as just understanding the process. And so for me, it was definitely a blessing. First in my family to go off to school, but I remember that first call because as the oldest of five, we had in Spanish it's called the carcancha. In that the cart, it would make it around the town, but it wouldn't make it up to La Jolla. And so our family wasn't able to drive me up to college. My boyfriend at that point drove me up, and I remember unloading my stuff in my dorm room because I lived on campus. And once I was settled in, I called my mom. The boyfriend left. I called my mom, and again, this was before cell phones. So I went down to my quarters, down to the payphone, down at Rebel, the dining hall. And there I am putting my quarters in, and I call my mom. I said, "Mom, I'm here. I'm in La Jolla. I'm settled." And I hear her say, "Mija, I miss you," and she's just crying on the phone. And I tell the story to the younger ones now, and they're like, "What's a payphone?" And so after UC San Diego, after meeting my husband, we've been together ever since. So we're going strong. This year is going to be 17 years of marriage. We've known each other 24 years, and he's my rock. So as part of my education, it was really supporting him and him supporting me. And we're going strong for sure. And then after UC San Diego, I actually got I did a fellowship in public policy. It's called Coro, and it really allows you to see what kind of leader you want to be. I started September 6th of 2001 with a cohort of 11 people, and then September 11th happened. And it was interesting because my colleagues, one of the colleagues that was on there was Congresswoman Mike Levin. He was part of my cohort. We also had Jenny Yang, who is a comedian, Asian comedian. And all of these elements of what it meant to be a leader at that point in time, when there was something so historic that happened to our community and as the United States, and how we all came together as a nation, it really helped shape me as a leader. And that's basically what the fellowship was. They rip your guts out, throw them on the floor, stomp on them a little bit, and then ram them back down your throat. Tell us about yourself. You're like, I'm an observer. I want to listen. I want to be better. And it was life-changing.
So it sounds like you have a great love for National City. You've been there all your life. Can you tell me some things about National City that make it such a special city for you?
Sure can. So National City was at one point called Rancho de la Nación. So there's been rumblings, well, why don't we change it back? So you have Rancho Santa Fe, you have Rancho fill in the blank. So, there's been conversations about changing that, but we are National City. We are a national city. And we've been working on, various ways to promote it, not only here regionally, but nationally and internationally. We have sister cities in Tecate and Olongapo in the Philippines. We also have several small businesses. And when I say small businesses, they're not the micro, but they are, 15 to 45 small business entrepreneurs. And those have included anywhere from Yardage Town, where I remember going with my mom to get the material for my 15-year-old, my quinceañera dress that she designed. And it was satin, and we bought some lace, and it was amazing. But the smell, I remember just going in there, being able to smell the material. It's those skills and talents that kind of get lost, that with National City's history, we are the second oldest city to national in the county of San Diego. We only chase city of San Diego by 6 months. They applied before we did. We actually hosted the first county fair, and then it went to Del Mar. So we have so much history with Brick Row, the Victorian homes, the Kimball family, multitude of businesses, from Cafe La Maze for dinner and dancing and lobster and steak, to going down and getting some of the best lumpia and tacos along National City Highland Avenue and National City Boulevard. So we have the beauty and the diversity in National City, and we're flanked by two major cities, the city of San Diego to the north and Chula Vista to the south. So we really are that bridge in between two major cities, but we have our own history that, to me, always speaks to the beauty that is the community of National City.
So I know one of the big businesses in National City is the Paradise Valley Hospital. Can you tell me how that fits into the big scheme of National City?
Well, we, over the course of the last 2.5, 3 years, during my tenure as mayor, we've worked with the World Health Organization and AARP to work towards the designation of an age-friendly community. And what does that mean? I use the moniker of from twinkle to wrinkle and everything in between. So from recién nacidos, so people who are just recently born, to 115, you should be able to walk or roll in any direction. So stroller to walker to wheelchair, regardless of your disability, regardless of your abilities for that matter. You should have access to an open space, a financial institution, so a bank, a grocery store for healthy food items, an entertainment venue, movie theater or a library. You should be able to hop on mass transit. So through that age-friendly initiative, and Paradise Village, which is one of our senior living facilities, and it's progressive. So you can have the independent, you can have assisted living, and then you can have palliative care. All of that in one facility. We need to think about how we create those environments, not just in one portion of the city or one portion of the region. It should be available to all and be affordable, for that matter, for all individuals, because not everybody has a pension, not everybody has a 401k that they can bank on. Some people are still working into their 60s and 70s and sometimes into their 80s. And we as a society need to be able to create those environments. And selfishly enough, I know I'm going to get there, God willing, because my grandparents have lived into their 80s and into their 90s. So I want to have those facilities, and if I can plant the seed now to make sure that we have that, then we're going to do that. And so we have, and just approved last summer, our first affordable housing, intergenerational housing, which means that it's going to have studios, to 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms. It's going to have a healthcare clinic, dental office, recreation center for our seniors on 12th and D. Again, with the perspective that all walks of life should have the opportunity to live and thrive in our community. And it's close to the library, it's right across the street from a bus stop, and across the street from our Boys and Girls Club, up the street from our middle school. So it's really thinking about it in its holistic perspective. And we're also bringing in the city's first ever PACE Center. So it's a facility that older adults can go and have activities at. So how cool would it be? You go to work, or grandma goes to work, and then you go and have the ability to take abuelita or your ate, or to go have and have fellowship with other people who share great stories about National City or what they did in their profession. So it's a great opportunity, and I believe that makes National City just that much more unique. But also too, we're addressing the needs of those whose shoulders we stand on. We cannot say, oh, because they're this age, that's it. No, there are people that are still bungee jumping at 80 years old. There are people that are still living their lives at specific ages. And that's how I feel we as municipal leaders need to, continue addressing, those desires and, the needs of our community.
Talk to me a little bit about the Bayfront. I know down in Pepper Park, you're doing a lot of development. You have a new rec center down there, I believe, and also Pier 32. Tell me a little bit about that.
So Pepper Park is in the port land. However, the history was back in the 1950s, that actually was National City property. They did a land swap, and so we, at Tidelands, that was our cutoff, and we ended up losing access and revenue from the port, but it became part of the unified port system. However, over the course of the last 20 years, we've fought very hard and advocated for those facilities and amenities. The pier, the new aquatic center, Pier 32 restaurant, and the little beachfront that we have. And our goal through the balanced plan in the next few months, we're hoping to release something that would really create open space, as well as a potential salon / rec space that our community can go and celebrate in. Because right now there is not a hall that is big enough to house our Chamber of Commerce dinner or Sweetwater High School's graduation, or prom, should I say. We always have to go outside of our city. So how amazing would it be if we had something here in National City that we could celebrate and be celebrated in? So that's part of our balanced plan, as well as we have 2 hotel pads that right now we're looking at, what do we want to see in that area? And transit and transportation plans. From now, we're actually looking at a pedestrian bridge from the 24th Street trolley stop over the 5 freeway to get to the waterfront and those hotel pads. Why? Because we want people to get out of their vehicles and into mass transit. If you can hop on a trolley, like people do for the Padres game, they don't want to park you. $2 gets you to the Padres game. You can drink as much as you want. You can have as much fun, and then take the trolley back home. And this mass transit and access points are really important, because when I shared about the 2 hours getting to and from National City to La Jolla, I had heard rumblings about a trolley that they were trying to bring to La Jolla. And it was just this dream, this rumbling. Well, one of the votes that I got to make as a policymaker 20 years later was to support the Mid-Coast Trolley. And that is a 20-minute trolley from San Isidro to La Jolla, which means that people like myself, as undergrads or graduates or workers, can get up to La Jolla, and from the north to the south, and those vice versa, within 20-25 minutes. And that's the type of innovation that, when we talk about our waterfront, we really want to make that connection. That it's not an other, but it's connected. It's part of that bridge to and from, whether it be to Baja Cali. People go to the wineries. Hey, take the trolley, hop on your transportation to get to your Valley Winery, and then hop back on and get home. And we want to make it more convenient, more safe, and cheaper to do all that.
When does that rail system go into effect?
Well, the Mid-Coast Trolley, we're hoping, well, it's going to happen because it's on budget and it's on time. So we're looking at this fall. This fall we will be doing a ribbon cutting and hopefully doing inaugural trolley rides, because as the pandemic has shown us, there are people who have been on mass transit even during the pandemic, and MTS and SANDAG. SANDAG is our COG, our Council of Governments, where all representatives from the different cities, 18 cities and the county, are at the table discussing what we want regionally. And MTS is our Metropolitan Transit System, which oversees the trolleys and the buses and the paratransit. So we need to make sure, one, it's safe, one, that the workers are protected, the constituents are protected, the bus rider, everybody is, and wearing their masks, as masks are still mandatory on mass transit, but that we recognize that it's an opportunity to get more people on mass transit. It's about convenience, it's about price, and it's about safety. So we're hoping to get that ribbon cutting, hopefully in person. June 15th is that magic day, of course, here for the state of California. Here in San Diego County, we're actually now in the yellow tier, so I think it allows us to really think about how we celebrate each other. One, coming out of the pandemic, being able to hug each other, checking your vaccine card first. Everybody's vaccinated. And encouraging those who may have waited. They're the wait and seers. Yeah. They're like, oh yes, I'll be getting it. What? Oh, maybe I'll wait. But then you also have the people who've been working nonstop, who have not had time to go to get the vaccine. So it's making sure that we take all of that into consideration. And so fall, Mid-Coast Trolley. And right now we are actually working on our RTP, our Regional Transportation Plan. And it's really looking out 50 years to see what we want to do for transportation infrastructure here. And why not think big? Some people say, oh, that's pie in the sky. You're never gonna get there. This is too expensive. I hear you. I understand.
It's $160 billion.
It is. It is. But if we don't take a step in the direction to thinking and seeing what it would cost, and if we want to see that happen, freeways don't just happen overnight. Housing and planning doesn't happen overnight. And if we do it in now dollars and value now, it's going to allow us for the next 3 generations to have something that will lower our carbon footprint, making sure that we have a Mother Earth to come to. So climate, but we also too can think about our neighborhoods differently. Like I mentioned, age-friendly or the 10-minute communities. Many of the communities, way they were built, were considered bedroom communities. You would drive to, you would open your garage, close the door, and you didn't have to see your neighbor. We have a lot more communities like National City where we have urban centers and people know who the neighbors are. It's intergenerational and it's generational for that matter. And they want to be able to walk to the coffee shop, to the tortilla shop, to wherever they need. And we're seeing more and more demand for that. And we can't have the NIMBYs or the not in my backyard saying, oh, but that's for those people. We need that in all communities. We need all incomes and all walks of life to be region-wide. And how we get to that? By dreaming big. And not just dreaming it, by actually doing it. And yes, is it hard? Yeah. Is it gonna be expensive? Yeah. Anything that is worthwhile? I mean, pairs of shoes are expensive. But my excuse is I tell my husband it's gonna last me forever, and then he's okay with me purchasing it. I have to justify what it means. And it's beyond me as a leader. I'm not gonna be here forever, nor do I plan to be here forever. But this type of thinking, we can be a world-class community, a world-class center for transportation, housing, jobs, economic development, Why not? We want to see that for the next generation. And yes, it's easier to say no than it is to say yes. But if we can each talk about what is our, the WIFM, the what's in it for me, if I can get to work without having to battle traffic, and I can check, my social media or check in on my kids or call my, family members in Kentucky while I'm headed up to work, even better. If I can create a work hub in my city so people don't have to leave, then that money is recycled in my neighborhood. If I can have the connectivity for the students from our South Bay region up to a world-class institution, that just makes it about access and makes it that much stronger. Because the people who will be taking care of me when I'm in a senior living facility are the ones that are in elementary school now. I want them to have the best access to everything because, I'm only putting myself at a disservice. And I think there's opportunities that are there. And yes, things have been done in a certain manner for so many years. But that's why we have to think outside the box. And as upstream conversation as it is, we need to be open to it. And the other benefit is you count how many people you need to convince to make it happen. And we work towards that.
I think we definitely need some type of a transportation that takes us from the south to the north, the north to the south, definitely. But that package involves a bullet train, is that correct?
It's an underground. It's not so much a bullet train, but it is a faster paced trolley, exactly. And it's subterranean, and it would go same like the mid coast, but it would be subterranean. It would go from Chula Vista through National City down, and it's called the South Bay to Sorrento Valley. And the cool part about this is it would be going to those major job hubs. And when you think about it, it's an opportunity to really think about how we get to and from those hubs. And for me as a leader, I'm thinking, well, instead of having to go up there, why don't we bring them down here? But yes, it's a multitude of different projects. Another one being the Otay Mesa border entry, which it would be the third port of entry with a goal time of 20 to 25 minutes wait time. And again, as we talk about climate action and cars idling, the goal for that would be to get commerce and people in and out across the border, because those people who don't live in our region don't understand the border, that it's fluid. There are people who live and work on both sides of the border and travel every day. And so I think it's more so being able to, again, create more access because the goods, whether they be TVs, shoes, cars, a number of other products, they cross our borders every day. And I would say that the border and the necessity of the Baja California and California is just the relationship. It's a necessity. We have people living and working on both sides of the borders, and whether it be the tourism industry, we know that the medical industry down in Tijuana, whether it be dental, cosmetic, they have a booming industry, and many older adults who actually can't pay for their prescriptions here on this side, they go to the other side of the border and get them cheaper. And so it's fluid and it's necessary, and it creates markets on both sides, and we're helping each other. And I think that that's where we as a community, as a region, can benefit, especially with the 25-minute wait. As we talk about just customs and quality of life, and even that fluidity, whether it be going down to Rosarito to get some lobster, or Puerto Nuevo to get the lobster, or going to Tijuana to get a cupiñata or what have you. It's things that we're accustomed to, and the reality is there are family members on both sides of the border. So as we talk about what quality of life is, it's not just the consumer, it's about the people. And the fence line is just a fence line. There are families and relationships and businesses and commerce and the whole nine that goes beyond just that line, that border. And people who aren't from, the San Diego region or Baja Cali, they may not be familiar. And that's where I think some of the preconceived notions about, commerce and trade, as well as immigration, the refugee status, gets confused. And there's a lot more jargon that comes in and rhetoric. But when you see what happens and how, the current administration, as well as the county and the city and a multitude of other agencies are helping to address and meet the needs, we're at a better place now, and it's something that here in our region we've known, and we've been working through it for decades. And I would just say that this is part of our way of life here in the South Bay. This is how we move. Our cadence, we support each other, we recognize the history, we recognize the nuances, and that's the beauty too of the diversity. Like we're unique in that we have generations of people leading organizations. When Mary Casillas Salas became the mayor, she could talk about her lineage here. When we talk about Holocaust survivors here in the South Bay, we can show that lineage. People like myself who are third generation in National City, my girls being fourth, we can talk about the history of our communities, and that's the beauty that is South Bay. We have something that many other communities, they may talk about it, but they have people that come in from the outside. And that's the challenge. We tell our youth, go, you can be anything you want to be, but because of lack of housing, because of lack of employment opportunities, they go off to school and they may not come back. In our communities, we're really being purposeful in saying, mijo, mija, son, daughter, come back. And these are the opportunities, whether it be through mentorship, pipeline, through the police and fire explorer programs, our parks and rec department. All of these have and should, as we need, mentorship and legacy projects that we can push our youth into. And I say gently push because they may or may not know about it. It's not forcing them, but they really need to see the WIFM as well, the what's in it for me, because we can tell them as much as we want, but they have to feel it. And those are the things that for me, the pandemic, has really opened my eyes to recognizing the sacrifices, not just from us as adults, the 18 and over, but the sacrifices that our students have made. I had 3 students that were distance learning, a 4th grader and 2 3rd graders, and we were all sharing the same bandwidth, literally and figuratively, at times throughout the year. And the seniors of the class of 2021, to know that they didn't have a homecoming. They didn't have the lunchtime conversations on the senior lawn. They didn't have their prom or grad night or getting to talk to their senior advisor. Everything was online. Whereas last year, they got to do most of it during the school year, but they lost out on that last month. I think it's recognizing that struggle and that sacrifice is going to be imprinted on that next generation of leaders, but they also too were the first people, once it became eligible, to get the vaccine. They stepped up. They are ready to take on this next phase. And so I would say that as a region, I'm just so proud of the next generation of leaders, because they're going to make a difference. And I know that they will be there for us as we've been for them. And I just can't wait for, to see who's going to be in these next roles.
So I just wanted to go back to the subterranean speed rail.
Sure.
And do you know where that route is actually going to be? Is it near the trolley tracks, or would it be more inland?
So what we've talked about is it would come up through, it's considered the Purple Line. and it would come up through Highland Avenue, kind of I believe Highland is Broadway. So it would come up Broadway and then make a right at Plaza, and then from Plaza to go to a main like transit, and then it'd go up to Sorrento Valley along the 805.
Inland. Then.
Uh-huh.
That's good.
And again, it's connecting those homes to the mass transit. And you know, we have rural areas that don't have those mass transit lines right now. So it's how do we connect that now with the fundamentals, the basics, and then start thinking bigger as well. But that's also too, if that's what the community wants. You know, we can't force things on people. There has to be that willingness to want to, you know, have that type of accommodation. And also too, you know, it's that balance. The people that are there now may or may not be there in 20 years when this actually gets built.
So one of the ways I've heard mentioned paying for this big project would be setting a tax for people, how many miles they drove.
Vehicle miles traveled.
Yeah. And when I think about that, I see a lot of different aspects that it should be a very hard thing to manage and to have accountability, to compensate for people coming into our community. How are they not paying for helping us? So can you address that?
Yeah, sure. So I think as we start talking about the plan, it's really about tools in the toolbox. Vehicle miles traveled is one option, a tool for revenue, one way to pay for it. We've also talked about tolls. Tolls are throughout the state of California. Those have been there for decades. And then once you're done paying it off, then tolls go away. We've also talked about half-cent sales tax. We've talked about a multitude of other revenue generating. This one's getting a little more traction because we still don't have all the answers. How would you track that? Is everybody's car going to have a monitor? And what happens if you don't pay it? But the goal is through this RTP is that there's technology right now that is getting worked on that can help us reach that goal, where it provides security that you know that the government, Big Brother isn't watching, right, and tracking your every move, but you're able to move slowly, you know, and in between communities. But through technology now, they're already tracking you, where you're going, and pinging you everywhere you go now, and we don't really think about that until, you know, there's a fee increase, or there's a satellite or a 5G tower coming up in your community, and there's a public hearing that we want you to attend. And so things are already happening technology-wise that, you know, are already tracking and already, you know, looking at your usage. So this may be another opportunity, you know, to revisit all of those elements.
I just worry about the poorer members of our community and how that could possibly limit their ability to get around because they would fear they would incur costs related to their traveling about.
Right, and that's also too like what we've talked about with employers. Well, through SANEG, they've actually done an assessment where maybe having various hour differences, you know, from a 8 o'clock start to a 9 o'clock start, and what that means for traffic. Would that still be considered a high traffic time frame? And if we look at it during the pandemic, there was no one on the road. Now it's going to pre-pandemic times and on the freeway and traffic. So would employers, mass employers, be willing to change those conversations when before nothing could be done remotely? Well, guess what? There was a full year. We have data to show it can be done remotely.
Right.
And so I think it's this right now allows us to really rethink about the work environment, telecommuting, transportation, how people get there to and from, and even the digital divide. Because communities like National City and many in the South Bay, there are digital gaps. People who were told, oh, just go online and fill out this paperwork. Well, it doesn't work if you don't have a computer. It doesn't work if your Wi-Fi sucks. It doesn't work if you don't understand what they're asking you because you have to click through 5 pages to get through to the entrance. So it's all of those elements that we have to take a little bit at a time. You take small bites of the apple so you can get to the core. And so you can continue planting the seed. And I think that this RTP allows us to have the conversations and to really think about it bigger. And yes, for me, being in a working class community where their average income is $43,000 for a family of 4, has had essential workers since March who have not had time off because of the pandemic, I know that this is essential. This is something that we cannot take the equity lens off of. We have to be fair, recognizing that if there is a vehicle miles traveled or conversation about how we monitor this, how will it impact my community? And we're still getting those data points. We're still trying to figure all that out. But again, it goes back to the conversation of, are those jobs in our community? And can we promote more of those jobs so they don't have to leave? And yes, it's a progression, but we're having those conversations with the big employers. You know, if you want to help us and we want to help you, how do we work together to make this happen? And so it's working with our educational hub with UC San Diego Extension, which was one of the first things that we were able to get under my tenure. We're looking at certificates as well as degrees that we can offer at cost, but with a discount and or free for our residents. And it's that type of thinking that, hey, then we don't have to talk about vehicle miles traveled. Or you take the mass transit to UCSD, 20 minutes, $2, and then you're there. And again, possibilities truly are endless, but you have to have the ganas. You gotta have the chutzpah to be able to say yes. And again, it's hard to say yes than it is to say no, but we can get there. And I feel in my heart, because people want to see that. We want the opportunities. We want it better for our children and our grandchildren, for that matter. I think it can happen.
Well, your story is very inspiring. Your story is National City's story. You're an incredible person. You come from an incredible family. And do you have, 3 daughters?
I have 4
Four
daughters.
daughters.
4
okay.
daughters, yeah.
And do you have any pets or anything?
We do. We have 1 dog, Canela, 2 birds, He-Man and Shira, a fish, Mr. Bubbles, and partridge in a pear tree. No. And a beautiful husband that is my rock, who is there with the girls right now. And today being the last day of school, distance learning, we are so excited. But it's also the pandemic has allowed us to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner together as a family, and brought our family unit so much closer together. Longer hair for that matter, because we didn't go to any hair salons during this time. But it's been amazing to just have that convivir, the coming together with my core family unit. But now, since family members are getting vaccinated, now opening up that circle just a little bit and being able to see family that we have not seen in person for a good year. And I think most people are excited about that opportunity as well.
Well, Mayor Solis, I really want to thank you for being with us today. We got to know you a little more today. We got to hear about your dreams, your goals, your aspirations, your wonderful family, who you came from, and the family you have today. And I just want to tell you, thank you very much for being here. We're very proud of you in the South Bay. and we wish you continued success. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that wraps it up for our lives, our future. Thank you all for being with us.
We will duck or swim
And we'll float and fool around the water.
over and under.
And then up for air.
Pa is rich,
Ma is rich.
so now what do we care?
I love to be beside your side.
Beside the sea, beside the seaside, by the beautiful sea.